From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. Today, I am going to be unboxing expectation as a concept. And I first am going to self-disclose that I have, I'm going to say, an allergy to expectation, which I think comes from a very early exposure to it, which so many of us have. I had a very early exposure to high expectations. And this came from my father, who shared with me that he had begged my mother to have more children. I was his only child. I have a brother from my mother's first marriage. And then my mother married my father, and they had me, and my father wanted more children. And the reason he wanted more children, he shared with me, was that he wanted to spread his expectations out across his children and not have all of his expectations in one basket. My mother did not want to have more children. In fact, my father found out after my mother passed away that she actually had an abortion and did not tell him after I was born. And I believe it was twins. And he found out about it after she had passed. I don't remember exactly how. I digress. My father wanted more children so he could spread out his expectation. And instead, my father made it very clear to me that all of his eggs were in one basket, and that was my basket, and that I was the one that was going to have to carry out his expectations because he had nobody else to spread them out to. And so from a very early age, I started to develop what I'm going to call an allergic reaction to expectation. Now, I went along with it, of course, because I was very young, right? And as tiny people, we really want to make our parents happy. We really want that love from them and that mirroring back that they see us and that they think we're amazing. So I did all of the things that my father expected of me, including going pre-med. When I went to college, my father expected me to be a doctor. And I followed that course through college until I got to a certain point where I said, this is so misaligned with me. And I was getting depressed. And I actually went to see a therapist and decided to let him know that I was no longer going to continue on with pre-med, which I had already done for 2 years. And at that point, I switched to become a psychology major, which actually was much more fitting to me. Had I been left to my own devices from early on, I really have no idea what I would have studied and where my interests would have gone. But I was very directed. And I think many of us have histories like this. I was very directed to math and science. And those were the areas I needed to excel in order to become a doctor. And I lived up to those expectations every time up to the point where I just couldn't anymore and then kind of broke out of it. After college, many of my friends went to grad school or they got jobs, their first jobs right out of college and started working. And that was in those times, this was the early 90s. I graduated in 1990 from college. In those times, that was kind of the expectation. You finish school, you start working, you go back to graduate school, you start your life, you become an adult. I did not want any part of that. So I left and I went to go live in Europe. And I spent about 2.5 to 3 years doing that. After college, I learned how to speak Italian, and it seemed okay. My parents did not give me too hard of a time about it. They really let me beat to my own drum at that point. But when I got back in 1993 and was back in New York after that, I realized my time was running out to keep defying expectations that I had learned from my parents and also from society. And so I grabbed the guy that was clearly very interested in me and felt safe in many ways and ended up getting married and having a family because that was expected of me, not only in my family, but also by society. And in some ways, it truly felt like a death to me because I had such an allergic reaction to expectation, but I could not escape this one. And I had opportunities to. I had friends ask me if I wanted to be with them, sensually and sexually and test out what it's like to be with a woman. I had friends ask me that and I said no. So I went straight ahead and fulfilled the expectation and kind of died on the inside. So we have expectations that come from our family. We have expectations that come from society. And then we also, through our lifetime and through really natural occurrences, have our own expectations that begin to build. And these come from everything from being an infant and how your parent takes care of you when you have nothing but your cries to scream out, from, how regularly they come in and feed you and clean you and soothe you. And depending on that rhythm, we develop expectations. So if we are used to screaming for 15 minutes and then we know they're going to come, there's this internal clock that kind of tells us they're going to come. We start to become dependent upon being met and being nurtured and being taken care of in a certain consistent manner. Or some of us don't have that. Some of our parents are overwrought with stress and they don't have resources and our needs are not met. And the amount of time we're left crying and screaming as infants might vary from day to day, and we cannot set our nervous system around it. There is also an expectation in some way that when we fulfill our parents' expectations and we are pleasing to them, that we are going to get something positive back from them. We're going to get positive mirroring back from them once we have fulfilled their expectations. So even though in those times, in those early times in life, it's not really thought of as an expectation, but we do start to develop an imprint of what feels normal, I'm going to say, to our nervous system in terms of responsiveness from parents, mirroring from parents, desire to connect to us from parents. And we do start to develop, you can call this also attachment, but sort of what's expected. And then we go out into the world as we grow up and we start to have expectations of other people that we're interacting with, whether that's classmates or it's teachers or a principal at your school. And we keep gathering data along the way, and our expectations become more and more kind of set to the point where, and this is something I encounter a lot with clients, to the point where they're entering into relationships. And I see a lot of clients who are not on their first relationship. They are divorced. They are coming into their sexuality, whether it's bisexuality or they're gay, they're queer, and they're in the process of exiting a relationship that worked in some ways and didn't work in other ways. And they're going out into the world and starting to date. And what I have found is that there is this sort of underlying silent layer of expectation that they are carrying with them as they enter into dating or new relationships. And the expectations are everything from, I expect this person that I'm going to be dating or that I am dating, I started dating, I expect them to want to communicate with me as often as I communicate with them. I expect them to respond to my texts in a timely manner, which means in under an hour. An hour is too long. I expect that their need for solitude and their need for togetherness are the same as mine. And therefore, I don't need to talk about it. I can just expect that we're going to be spending the amount of time together that works for me. And what I see that happens is that people build up these expectations of other people and how other people are supposed to show up in life. And they don't actually have a conversation with this person about that. They just go in with the expectation. And then inevitably, it begins to create tension and narratives about yourself that you start to tell yourself when your partner doesn't want to be with you for the same amount of days that you want to be with them, or you really want to move in together. You really want to lock this down. You want to get engaged. You want to get married again. And they have no interest in that, but you have not had that conversation with them because you're going in with an expectation and they are letting you down. And so you begin to feel disappointed and you begin to feel triggered, and they're not who you expect them to be, and your expectations are not being fulfilled. You are out of the closet, but still in the house. You feel alone and like there's no safe place to explore, get curious, and discuss what's coming up for you. The Bi Life is for you. This is a new community program that will be starting on July 1st. To learn more about it, check out the show notes and register to be part of this new membership community for bisexual women who are in hetero-monogamous relationships with men. I just want to say, to me, expectation is a distancer. Expectation is a demand for somebody else to show up in the way you are expecting them to, versus having clear communication with your partner when you are first getting involved and then all the way through the relationship about what your core needs are and what your wants and desires are. So instead of coming in with expectation, which almost puts the other person in a tested position, right? They don't know what your expectations are. So you're coming in with these expectations, and if they don't meet them, they're going to lose. They're going to fail the test on your expectations because you haven't shared them with them. So it keeps you really distant. It is the opposite of intimacy. And there is such an easy workaround if you have done your work. And if you haven't, get out a journal today and put down on paper, what are you entering into a relationship? Or if you're already in a relationship, what are your expectations? What do you think this other person, and I'm going to use the word should, which I also have an allergy to, what should they be showing up in the relationship with? And look at your expectations and then ask yourself, what does each one of these expectations say about me? Let's say my expectation is my person that I end up with is going to want to be in constant contact with me. Let's just say, for one example, they're going to want to text me all day and send me cute things and memes. I expect them to be connected to me very, very regularly. This is my expectation. What then does that expectation mean to you about you? Ask yourself that question. I expect my partner to be extremely successful in whatever they have chosen as a life path and career. Okay. What is your definition of successful, first of all? And what does that expectation mean about you? If you have a partner that is very successful, however you define successful, what does that then mean about you? And go through your list of your expectations of what these other people in your life that you are carrying expectations for, even your kids. I have an expectation that my child is going to go to a top school and is going to get very high grades. Tell me, what does that then mean about you? Right? So I'm going to ask you to just do this U-turn. In terms of expectations, I'm asking you to do a U-turn where instead of going out into the world and taking these unsaid, unspoken expectations and putting them onto other people, and they don't know about it, so they're kind of set up to fail, right? Because we are not mind readers. What does that expectation that you are carrying mean to you about you? What is the narrative? If that person fulfills that expectation, what does that mean about you? That's what I want to ask you to do. Just a little curiosity about your expectation. And then, is there a way to soften your expectation into a either need or a want and desire? Because it is very fair to have needs that are core, whatever that is. And that might be, I need to be in a relationship that is an open relationship. I don't do monogamy. Or I need someone that I can be in a monogamous relationship with. This is not an expectation. This is a need. Can you express that to somebody? Can you have a conversation with them about it? And then what are your wants and desires? I love to cuddle. I love physical contact, even if it's not sexual. I love sensual contact. And, I want more of that, but it's an expectation I'm carrying into this relationship that that person is going to know and just do that. And so therefore I don't need to say it. I'm asking you to actually say it to the person in a kind, inviting way. Hey, I'm sharing something about myself here. This really feels good to me. This really works for me. How does that land on you? Is that something that you like too? Is that something that feels doable for you? Right? When we don't have these conversations, we're having relationships essentially in the dark. Right? And also when you come out to another human with your expectation, you're cutting out intimacy. The intimacy does not exist. Expectation leaves no space for intimacy. It's about a demand. It's about disappointment. It's about, I thought you were going to be this and you're not, and I expect you to. And because you're not, I'm unhappy. But it was never discussed, right? So again, expectation is inherent in our human lives, right? We do have expectations. We have expectation that we're going to get to from point A to point B. We have expectation that, we're going to see our family members at certain times of the year, right? There are certain things that we come to expect and just know that happen because they have happened over and over and over again. Again, going back to the, being an infant and crying out because you need to be fed, we start to expect that our need is going to be fulfilled when we have a parent that keeps fulfilling it. That is really different when we get to adulthood, right? There is something very different about being taken care of by a caretaker, by a parent, by someone who is helping you survive, and developing a need, the need being there and then developing the expectation around the need is very different than when you're an adult. Because when you're an adult, you actually are not going to find another adult that is going to just take care of you in the same way that your parent would have, right? That is a different kind of connection. That is a different kind of relationship. The parent-child relationship is based on survival. It's based on a gut need to survive that we have, and our parents are wired into that to take care of us and help us survive. As adults, our partners are not wired in to help us survive. We are responsible for our own survival. So I am sharing my allergic reaction to expectation with all of you, mainly because I hear about this from so many clients and friends also, that they enter into relationships, they enter with expectation. Those expectations are never discussed. They are never talked about. They're not expressed as needs and wants. They're not checked in with the other person. And then there is disconnect, and there is sort of narratives that start to form in our mind about who we are and what we're worth, and this person doesn't think we're worthy. And all of that could be thwarted by having a conversation. And that might feel hard for you. And you might say, well, I don't know how to do that, and I've never done that. And that's okay. I'm asking you to start with yourself. Start having the conversation with yourself. Write it down. Do the U-turn. What is the narrative? If this expectation is met, what is the narrative then about me, right? So first, just dive into curiosity about yourself. I would love to hear about your expectations. I would love to hear what you find out when you dive in with curiosity. And I would love to hear how you do expressing your needs and wants with your partner instead of approaching them with expectation and expecting them to know and have read your mind about it. I love when you write in and you share with me. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope this propels you into a little self-exploratory journey. Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach. Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful glory?